Now that the George Zimmerman case has just started, the trial has just started, they're calling star witnesses. And one star witness that took to the stand was Rachel Jeantel. She was the woman, or yes, the 19-year-old woman who was on the phone with Trayvon Martin as George Zimmerman was following him. And some are kind of disagreeing as to whether or not her testimony is going to help or hurt the defense. But we have a few videos so you guys can judge for yourselves. Now, in the following videos, she's being questioned by defense attorney Dawn West, and she's being asked about who she heard screaming on the phone. Let's watch the first video.
Jeantel says over the phone she heard Zimmerman approach and confront Martin.
And I say, Trayvon, and then he said, why are you following me for? And then I heard a hard breath man come and say, what you doing around here?
Moments later, Jeantel said she heard a struggle and describes Zimmerman as the attacker.
I said, Trayvon, I kind of heard Trayvon saying, get off, get off.
Then what did you hear?
And then the second later, the phone hung up.
So in that first video, she seems pretty clear that the person who was saying get off was Trayvon Martin. But in the next video, she seems to contradict herself. So let's take a look.
The defense also focused on inconsistencies between what she said in her earlier deposition and what she said on the stand.
Do you admit then that you were asked who was screaming for help, and your answer was it could be Trayvon?
Yeah, I told her it sounded like Trayvon, because Trayvon have a kind of baby voice.
So the question is, well, who is screaming for help? It's not Trayvon, is it? And your answer, it could be Trayvon. And the question, you know his voice so well. Was that Trayvon screaming for help, or wasn't it? Your answer, it could be. Like I said, I don't know, but it could be. The dude sound kind of like Trayvon. Trayvon do got that soft voice and that baby voice sometimes. So it could be, I don't know, you know it's not.
So in the first video, she seems pretty certain that it's Trayvon. In the second video, you can tell that she had said on the record that she thought it could be him. And some people are saying that that is going to be very helpful to the defense, because if she's contradicting herself, is she really credible?
Yeah, look, I already hate the coverage of this trial, to be honest. And this is part of why I hate it. This is actually an important case. It's not like Jodi Arias. It's not like all those other cases that was just like nothing but titillation. But they've taken an important case and they've turned it into a soap opera. Mm-hmm. So now it's like, okay, what did Jeantel say? How did she say it? You know, is she this? Is she that? And now, and you got, you know, headline news doing reenactments in their break room, and they've turned it into crap. And look, I care about the substance. Can you do stand your ground and just shoot people in Florida and say, I don't know, I mean, there was a fight. Maybe I picked a fight, but there was a fight at some point, and so I shot the guy. That's really important, and that affects people's lives. But we're now into like, I'm in the nitty gritty of Jeantel. Look, for the jury, what we just discussed.
It's important.
It's very important.
Yes.
Okay, for the jury. But for our purposes, I'm not even sure that that's important. Let alone when you get into the real crap of like, how did she sound? Did she do him any favors or not? Because, you know, I don't know. She sounded pretty real. Right? There's those insinuations.
So there are, of course, disagreements as to whether or not she's helpful to the defense. And some people are saying that, well, you know, the fact that she's so authentic and she seems real could actually help with the prosecution, because that'll help with her credibility. She's not changing her demeanor or anything just to appeal to the jury. So that might actually appeal to the jurors. But at the same time, the other argument or the counter argument to that is, well, if she is a friend of Trayvon Martin, well, she's black and she's scary looking and she seems like she's uneducated, so that must mean that Trayvon Martin was the same way and he could have been dangerous. So George Zimmerman was just trying to protect himself in the neighborhood.
Now this is the part that sickens me. Now we're having conversations about whether Trayvon's friend was too ghetto. Keep it real, right? That's the actual conversation that's happening, right?
Yes. So
look, don't get me wrong. I get that within a trial that there's going to be these judgments on people, right or wrong, and it might affect the decision of the jury, etc. What I don't like is that we've turned it into a sport, right? And so headline news doesn't care what the policy implications of stand your ground and how many people are going to get killed based on whether Zimmerman gets away with it or not, etc. But they love the titillation. They're like, oh, what did people say about Jeantel? Yay!
Well, that equals rating. So let's keep it real. Headline news is not interested in policy and what the implications are to society. They care about ratings, they care about advertisers and money. But for the purposes of this discussion, of course we can focus on the elements of the story that really do matter. By the way, going back to what I said about how the jurors might see her as a threat, Rachel Jeantel, who's an associate professor of sociology at the University of Maryland, says the following: Black teenagers, as their bodies develop, become viewed as being much older and in many ways more dangerous than white teenagers. So if individuals are watching this and they see Jeantel and view her as an adult, then your expectations for what she should do become very different than if you view her as a teenager and more similar to a child.
By the way, the trial is also happening quite a bit after the shooting happened. So, okay, but Rachel didn't look like that when the shooting happened. Okay, now she's older. Oh, well, now she's older, and now... look, man,
George Zimmerman certainly doesn't look the same.
Yeah, well, that's true, too.
Yeah.
And then we're going to get body language experts. You know shit has devolved when you're down to body language experts.
Exactly. Okay, so we got to go to a few more videos, Cenk. Let's go to video A4. In this video, Jeantel is asked to read a letter that she had given to Sabrina Fulton, the mother of Trayvon Martin, after the incident occurred. But as you can see, she has a difficult time reading.
Ms. Jeantel, would you take a look at that copy of the letter, and let me ask you a couple of questions about it. Do you recognize that letter as being one that you said earlier was prepared to be given to Ms. Fulton?
Yes.
And that letter was prepared with the assistance of a friend of yours named Francine Serve?
Yes.
And you and Ms. Serve talked about what you wanted to be in the letter, and then she helped write it in a way that was legible, correct?
Yes.
But the contents of the letter are yours.
Yes.
Are you able to read that copy well enough that you can tell us if it's in fact the same letter?
No.
Are you unable to read that at all?
Some of them I do not.
Can you read any of the words on it?
I don't understand cursive. I don't read cursive.
I hate that part because the defense attorney makes clear that she had a friend write it for her, that she had told her friend what to write. I felt like the whole point of that was to make her look stupid. And to make the jurors judge her based on her lack of ability to read cursive. That was so unnecessary, and I hated that.
No, it was to humiliate her. And that proves that Zimmerman is innocent. How? How she can read that letter is related to Zimmerman's guilt or innocence in which way? So,
what was implied,
I hope it backfires.
What was implied there was, look at how stupid this star witness is. Are you really going to trust her testimony? That's what that was about, and it really bothered me.
Yeah, I hope it backfires.
And then final video had to do with Trayvon Martin and what he told Jeantel when George Zimmerman was following him.
One thing about what Trayvon Martin told you that made you think this was racial.
Describing the person.
Pardon me?
Describing the person.
I just didn't...
Describing the person that was watching him and following him, sir.
Describing the person is what made you think it was racial?
Yes.
And that's because he described him as a creepy-ass cracker?
Yes.
So it was racial, but it was because Trayvon Martin put race in this.
No.
You don't think that's a racial comment?
No.
You don't think that creepy-ass cracker is a racial comment?
No.
Well, you didn't mention it in your letter, correct?
That's just a personal letter to mama.
Right, you didn't tell Ms.
That's just a personal letter to the mother.
You didn't tell Ms. Fulton that the man that was following him was a creepy-ass cracker, did you?
No.
You didn't tell Mr. Crump in the recorded interview that Trayvon Martin described George Zimmerman as a creepy ass cracker.
No.
All right, look, when he's attacking her for could be or definitely Trayvon crying out, that's perfectly legitimate. That's what the defense is supposed to do, and it's relevant to the trial. I understand. Then he humiliates her and embarrasses her for no reason. And now we're into the creepy ass cracker stuff. Now, I get news for the attorney here. He was followed by a creepy ass cracker. That's exactly what happened. And Zimmerman also brought race into it. And he's worried that this guy is following me because of my race, and hence reporting to the person on the phone, this guy's following me like there's an issue here, right? And guess what? Turned out Trayvon was right. It turns out a guy was following him. Race was an issue. Zimmerman had been following black guys all the time through the neighborhood on his so-called neighborhood watch when nobody put him on that watch. And he had a gun, and he was creepy, and he did stalk Trayvon Martin. Now we go to the issue of, oh my God, he used a bad word. By the way, let's just note for the record here real quick that Trayvon's dead and Zimmerman is the one who shot him. But now all of a sudden Trayvon is guilty because he said on the phone cracker. So, well, I mean, what were you going to do? Not shoot him in the chest?
Yeah.
Right? Now, JR, let's go to the analysis of the word cracker and whether that's unacceptable and someone should be judged after they've been killed, by the way, for using that word.
I hate the term only because it first off, it's hard to have it as a racial term when you're the group that's being oppressed throughout history. So the term being cracker was, I don't know, maybe it's up for dispute, but this is what I read. Slave owners with whips and they'd crack the whip and punish slaves in many instances. So cracker being that source or that person of so-called authority over other people. So it really isn't biting back at anyone. It's not like the opposite term for the N-word or any of that type of stuff. It doesn't put you, if a white person hears it, they don't go, man, it's such a source of oppression for over the years for our people. It's not the same thing.
Yeah. See, when they use the N-word, oftentimes what followed throughout a lot of years in our history, unfortunately, was they would string you up on a tree. So that's why the N-word has connotations that are ugly and offensive and a problem. If you got called a cracker back in the day, it's because you were cracking the whip while you were beating your slave. See, not the same connotation. It's a little different, don't you think? And I love the people who pretend to be super upset by words like honky. Like, oh my God, I can't believe he called me a honky. And then what happened? 9 out of 10 times, 99 out of 100 times, absolutely nothing happened, okay? Because it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing at all. And here, by the way, what happened in this case? The guy with the Skittles and the iced tea was worried about the creepy cracker who was following him. What happened? He got shot in the chest.
Yeah,
right?
Why do we keep forgetting about who provoked the altercation? Like, you see what I'm saying? He was told to stop following him by the 911 dispatcher, and he continued to follow. Like, why do we continuously forget about that? Yeah. It would be like me, like, slapping you continuously, and then when you do something to fight back, I'm like, violence. Did you see that? He hit a woman.
Yeah. Look, if I was the prosecution, and I'm sure the judge would try to put an end to it, but with every single witness, relevant or not, my first question would be, remind me who was following who again? Oh, right. And remind me who had the gun again? Right. Zimmerman was following Trayvon. Zimmerman had the gun. And remind me who shot who? Oh, right. Zimmerman shot Trayvon. Okay, all right. Now let's move on with the rest of the questioning.